What's up, everybody? This is Jason. I should just go by Jason this time because this is just about me. It's not really about my channel. It's not really about anything in particular as far as what my channel is about. But I thought I'd do a PSA for those out there who are parents of kids who do travel ball or will soon to be one, or just maybe what that world looks like from someone who made a huge embarrassing mistake. And I know if you were been a part of my channel for any length of time, you already know being an embarrassment is kind of like my MO. But something happened last week that I took a week to kind of think about it, mull it over in my mind, and I realized that I needed to be a better person. And unfortunately, I wasn't. I got my emotions got the best of me, and I made some mistakes. I want to share that stupidity and ridiculousness with people because maybe it might help someone else in the future. Uh, but hopefully, other people are a little bit more classy than myself, and I'm doing this mostly for this. Hopefully, down the road, a memory of uh, how anytime you think that uh, you got it all figured out. By far do I think I'm perfect. I know that, but a lot of times I feel like I have control of my emotions, or I have control of what comes in out of my mouth, and I can choose to contain that or let it go. And then I unfortunately had a huge embarrassing moment this past last weekend, and and I just wanted to tell people, no one's perfect. People make mistakes, and it's not a finer moment for myself. But my son was playing his final travel ball game weekend, final weekend for not only just the summer, but for also um, for this his team. We decided to go another direction for him next year. Where really he decided, and we supported him in his decision to look at opportunities in other places. And I did a video talking a little bit about that a couple weeks ago about not having an opportunity for he felt like he didn't have the same opportunity that other kids had on the team. So this past weekend, last weekend, was his last weekend. Really was Sunday. It was rained out Friday and Saturday. So Sunday they pushed in 4 games into one day. So we were at the ballpark for 15 hours. We left for a couple hours and then we came back between game 2 and 3. But I kind of wanted to talk about there's no other way to really slice it or talk about this, just knowing that uh, not only did I embarrass myself, but more importantly, I embarrassed my son, and I've of course apologized, to him, and I apologized to the coach, apologized to his mother because it was the least I could do, and I got my emotions got the best of me, and there's no excuse for anything that I said about the way I acted. It was a complete embarrassment, and obviously, we all know um, I'm by far from perfect, and like I said, I feel like I have a pretty good control of my my feelings when it comes to sports. Like I have had, shockingly, I used to be very intense sports parent, but over the years I've actually mellowed out. Now I'm sure some people might find that surprising, but honestly, I just try to support my son and just be there for him and try to give him words of encouragement and try to build him up as you would want to. I don't ever try to tell him what he's doing wrong or why aren't you not doing this or that or the other. And so I think because I've taken more of a passive approach where I was way more aggressive in the past, when the situation came up, I was beside myself, and everything I'm getting ready to say right here just kind of is the nuts and bolts of what had happened. I don't make any excuses for it. I'm 100% in the wrong, and there was nothing that I did or said that was justified. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was already like regretting it. And I was one of those things where before I could stop myself, my brain was already pushing it out, and I couldn't stop it. But so what had happened was in game 3, they won their first 2 games. They were playing the third game, and my son, he hit a shallow right field hit to right fielder pop up. Pretty routine fly ball. There's 2 umpires, and the one umpire who was on the bases, watching the bases in the outfield, sees a kid, and the kid looks like he catches my son's ball. He fields it, but as soon as he turns away, like the kid didn't even have the ball completely in his glove yet. He just assumed that he caught the ball because it was a routine fly ball, and I totally understand. You kind of just say, well, that's an easy one. This is not a hit from my son. It would be an error because guess what happened? It fell right out of his glove. It fell right on the ground and it rolled past him, and the kid grabs it real quick, and the umpire, turned around before that had happened and called it an out. And of course, everybody was up in arms. The other coaches from the other team obviously knew the kid dropped it. All the other players knew he dropped it, but everybody just was like super quiet because they don't want to say the right thing, which is ridiculous. That the kid dropped the ball out of his glove. They were like, oh no, I don't know what happened. It's a mystery. So of course our coaches were like, hey man, he dropped the ball. And so they deferred to the home plate umpire, who should be staring right at the play. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the umpire by home plate should always be looking at wherever the action is, to just confirm whatever the other umpires are, because the home umpire is kind of like the chief or the head umpire, whatever you want to call it, that individual. So quite frankly, I don't think he looked. He wasn't paying attention. He didn't know what kind of call he should make. So when our coaches referred to him to say, hey, can you whatever the word, what's the word I'm looking for? Overrule the other umpire, he called him out too. And I'm like, and so at that point I was like yelling at the umpire, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And I don't usually use 4-letter words in my conversations with anyone, especially around my son. I don't really I try to keep a lid on that kind of conversation or talk, because I just don't find it to be probably the best form of communication. I'm by far perfect again, like we talked about. But I tell the umpire, you've got to be kidding me. And I'm sure I used another kind of word at that time. Hey, what up, Wes? And so I'm sure I used another word at that time. And so, I mean, of course, everyone was giving these umpires grief because it was a terrible call. And instead of just owning it, the umpire owning it and say, you know what? Yeah, he was out. I didn't see it, but obviously the kid dropped the ball. The other umpire didn't know really how to call it. He just called it out, but he just wrote it into the sunset and go, I'm going to go ahead and call it an out. So when he said it's still an out, I get up and start, pointing my finger and yelling at the umpire and telling him that he's ridiculous. And this is, how can you call it that? I mean, all the typical things you'd expect a parent to say in this situation. And the umpire was coming to me. And so I'm going towards the umpire between the fence and the field. And the umpire says something along the lines of, if you say one more thing, you're out of here. And so then I told him to go F himself in front of my son and his team, the coaches, his mom, all the parents, and their kid, they're the brothers and sisters, little brothers and sisters. And, as soon as I said it, I was like, oh my gosh, dude. And I felt terrible. And I can only imagine how upsetting it was for my son, because I obviously really I couldn't stay there because I was kicked out of the game. He threw me out as soon as I said that. I mean, um, and as soon as I said it, I knew I was 100% in the wrong. I let my emotions get the best of me. And I think that it's important that I share this because I know so many people. You get caught up in the moment. Regardless of what the topic is or subject is. When it comes to your kids, you get you emotions supersede being rational. And like I said, I'm not making any excuses. I was 100% wrong, and like I said, I wanted to put this out here because I wanted this to put it out there because it's something that I should be able to go back and reflect on in the future. Also, for maybe other people who might have those same situations where it's hard for you to keep things in perspective. So of course I realized right after I said that it was a terrible choice, a terrible mistake, and I was ashamed of myself. I mean, talking about walking the green mile back to my car, it really, it was like you could hear a pin drop. Because I yelled it at this umpire as loud as you could yell. All the parents on our team was like, "Oh, Jason, don't say anything else. Don't say anything else." Before I said it, because they just knew that it was going that direction. Because myself and the umpire was going back and forth. And people were like, Jason, just calm down. It's okay. It's okay. And I just was like, and I knew it in the back of my mind. I was like, it's going to be fine. But you want to advocate for your kid. And that is definitely not the way to do it. I definitely 100% have no justification. That is not the way you advocate for your kid. You can, of course, say, hey, that was a terrible call, whatever. You can say that kind of stuff or come on now. All the typical things you can kind of say and get away with. To let them know you're not happy or you're frustrated with their, ref or umpiring the game. You can definitely do all that without making like a verbal attack, which is what I did. So I'm walking the green mile back out to the car. You can hear a pin drop. We're talking about this huge baseball complex, and there's people all over the place. And and maybe it was just me because it was like so heightened in my mind what had just happened. But I felt like nobody was talking. There was like not even the other games was going on. Like it was like so loud, so like abrupt that everybody was paying attention to what was going on in the field. And then when I said, everybody of course was listening because the umpire, threw me out. And I guess they were waiting to see if there was going to be any other fireworks. Of course, I was not. I was already well on my way out the door because I knew as soon as I said it, I was gone. And like I said, when I was walking back to the car, I was already, of course, upset. I was really, beating myself up about it. But really, at the end of the day, because I knew what I did was 100% wrong and stupid and quite ignorant. And but really, I was thinking more about Luca, my son, and how that must have made him feel and look. And he never seen me that way before because I'm not really that person. I never really been that person too much. I'm sure when I was younger, like a lot of us are a lot more fiery and shooting from the hip because that's just a typical young man's thing. But I'm going to be 43 this year, so it's not really my style to be that way. Especially now, feel like I'm a lot more mellow, quite frankly. People might not think that, but who know me? But I really am. It takes a lot to round me up at this point in my life. But of course, when it comes to your son, you feel like there's been an injustice. You kind of throw everything to the side, and that's the thing I want to just tell other moms and dads out there, like. That was all about me. That was not about my son. That was about me and my personal ego. That was my own personal, I'm not going to get shown up by this umpire. I want to make a exclamation point statement. And that was all about me. That did not help the team. That did not help the coaches. That did not help the players, the boys. That definitely did not help my son. Everything that I thought I was going to be doing was exact opposite. So not only did I traumatize my poor son, and for him to be so upset and so just beside himself, and trying to process that, this is also his last time with his teammates in this capacity. This is his last couple of games of the season. This is the last time he's with these coaches, who he's been with since he was 7 years old, essentially. Now he's going on 13 this year. He's been with the same organization or program for 5 or 6 years or something in some capacity, I believe. because they started out as like an all-star team that transitioned into a travel team. So sometimes I forget where that switch over happened. And then of course it's just embarrassing. Of course it's embarrassing for me, but I can handle embarrassment. Like I've lived with my stupidity and dumb mistakes my whole life. I can take that and just deal with it. Deal with the fallout. But it's not fair to him. And just knowing that he had to sit there and just like I said, process all those things was for me, very difficult, and for us to be able to have that conversation later. And he took it like the best he could. He was, of course, upset and worried something was wrong with me or something happened to me, and he couldn't really focus on the game for the first few minutes or inning or two. And he finally was able to kind of get out of it. And him and I talked after the game. They actually ended up winning that game. He actually ended up having a great hit. His next time up, he hit it over the first baseman's head, and I got to kind of watch from my car because I wasn't allowed to go into the actual, venue. So I had to go to my car, and I'm like driving all around the perimeter to try to see if I could watch the game and just see the guys play and see Luka play in particular. I was finally able to position myself enough to be able to see most of what was going on. And I was able to see that hit and then scoring a run. And then the fourth game of the night, no one ever really said if I was kicked out for the entire day or just that game. So I showed up and ended up in the back, left field area of the park, and just kind of quietly stood around by the foul pole. But Luka wanted me there to watch the final game, and so I was there. And he had a great game the entire time. He laid down a perfect bunt, was able to get on base, scored off of that bunt. I believe. Well, he played out a bunt, and then I think, fortunately, he got thrown out at second when he was trying to steal him then. But he laid down this awesome bunt that completely threw the guys off. And then the second time around, he went up to bat and he hit a shot out to right center field. Was able to get a double, and I mean, it was just awesome. I mean, he had a fantastic game and a great way to end the season and a great way to end it with his baseball team. And it was like bittersweet because I should have been able to be a part of it. I should have been able to be there to support him more, but it was this weirdness that I created for myself. No one's to blame but myself, because I didn't really want to go around and they won the tournament. They went 4-0. They beat all the teams. They all got their rings. I think they handed out rings this year for that specific tournament. So they got first place or championship rings, and they were like huge. Like it says something like Dick's Sporting Goods with like gold and diamonds around it or something because they sponsored the tournament, I believe. So it was pretty cool, and it was a great way to end the season. But I wasn't really able to participate, from a distance I was, but I wasn't able to go out on the field. I mean, I guess I could have, but I just felt like, I caused a scene that was, I'm sure none of the parents would have really have said anything to me. They're probably all like shell shocked, as well as the poor kids of what had happened. But, they probably wouldn't have said anything to me if I went out to the field. But I think it was like, I'm aware enough to know that even though things might not have been said, it was probably maybe I wasn't necessarily wanted there at that moment in time because of what had happened. And I respect that. And so I took the road of least resistance and let the boys have their time, which they deserved, with their parents, with their coaches, because it was, another kid on the team was also leaving. So it was a kind of a way to kind of just like everybody celebrate for a few minutes, their win, the victory, the hard fought battles, and then the season itself. And so and in the past, I was always right there in the thick of it, of course, taking pictures and congratulating, Luka and all that, and the boys in general, and the coaches. And I didn't get to participate in that, and it was because of my stupidity and this emotional reaction to something I should never have done. Yeah, I appreciate it, Doug. And so, I mean, it was a very difficult time that had happened, and I just want to share that with people because it makes me look, it's very embarrassing. It makes me look, like a child for the way I reacted, and I dare say like a very bad parent at that moment, and I would agree with all those things. one thing that you do does not define you as a person or a parent. You try to learn from it, and you try your best not to do it again. And I definitely, that's why I'm putting this video out there for other people who may stumble upon it, or people who know me, or people who know about travel ball and what that looks like. Because, it doesn't matter if it's football or baseball, it could be football, it could be basketball, tennis, softball, volleyball, whatever, golf, whatever it is. When you're a parent and you're playing at a more of a higher level, dare I say elite level, and there's a lot more on the line than just like, a typical rec ball. Like, you pay your $100 and the kids show up, once a week to play, but you're like putting your blood, sweat, and tears into this for your kids, and you yourself, you're giving up so much. And then, so I feel like there's more investment, but does that mean that I get to act like a horse's butt? Absolutely not. I'm trying to let people know that, avoid those things, take your pride out of it, take your ego out of it. It's about the kids. Of course I knew that going into it. I knew I knew as soon as the umpire challenged me and said, don't say anything else, I should have just dropped it, and just just swallowed my pride and just go sat down and just huffed and puffed. But, it'd be over with. They could go on to the game, and the umpire would already know that there's heightened, feelings because of a bad call, and just leave it at that. Because at that point, maybe, of course, they would try a little bit harder to really keep up with umpiring the game the right way and pay attention through the entire play, not just the first, half second to a second, and then go, okay, that's whatever. But yeah, I just wanted people to know, because it was, a very, hurtful experience that I didn't get to spend with my son. And it was nobody's fault but my own. It was very difficult to kind of go through that. It was obviously very difficult for my poor son. And like, this is not even about me. It's about how your kid reacts to your action. This is the reaction from your action that can cause damage and cause issues and hurt feelings and bad blood, I guess, and stuff. And luckily, my son is such a resilient kid and realized that, hey, dad's not perfect. I even sent him a message later that evening, go, well, hey, if you ever thought your dad was perfect, well, now you know, and try to, ease into I apologize to him in person. I apologize to him like 2 or 3 times. And then I apologized to him and through a message, a text or whatever, because he was at his mom's that weekend. And so we spent time together in the car driving home. But at the end, I wanted to just follow up with another message to him. So he really sees that I wasn't just trying to be like, oh, I'm sorry. And then, just trying to, just, oh, shucks it off. Like, oh, I'm sorry. But like really meant it, because, I did and I do. So yeah, guys, I just kind of want to throw that out there. I thought it might be useful to other people, and it could go. And you could use that for anything, just your work life, other family situations. Not to let your emotions get the best of you. To check your pride at the door, check your ego at the door. You don't always have to be right. You don't feel like you have to be justified in how you feel to prove a point. Is it going to hurt other people? If it's going to hurt other people, if it's going to embarrass other people, including yourself or your own family, is it worth getting it out just so you can think you got like the upper hand, just because you could like try to shut the door in their face and be like, booyah, I got you now? Like, is it worth all that? And I would say, from my experience, and maybe if you asked me this 2 weeks ago, I'd be like, yeah, man, it'd be totally worth it. Well, now I can tell you 100% it is not worth it. It is not worth you losing an opportunity to celebrate with your family, your son, your daughter, about anything. And then not only do you miss out on the celebration and being able to be a part of that, the embarrassment that can go with it, which could be, long lasting, and especially somebody like myself, again, living in a small town, people are probably not going to forget that. And luckily, they're such good people, they're not going to hold that against my son, and they know that there's no reflection on him. But I'm sure that people are going to be like, Jason, he's a hothead. Like, this dude can't be trusted, so you got to be careful with that guy. And I don't want that image out there. I don't want that perception out there, but what did I do? I gave him a reason to think those things, and I have to try to, repair it, or I don't know if repair is the right word, but be better and do better. And so people can say, like, that was an anomaly. That wasn't a normal thing. And, I think most parents and most coaches know that, know me. They've been around me for years and know that I'm a passionate person when it comes to, my son. and that just my emotion got the best of me. And but at the same time, again, it's no excuse. But I think most people know that was not like a normal type of response, because I would have done that years earlier and 20 times before that, and I held off until that last game. And I'm sure for myself, I was thinking this is his this is his last game of the season. His season had been average at best of a season. He hadn't had a great season, and so I was thinking, these are the best opportunity he has to end on a positive note, and that was taken away from him with a bad call. And again, that's no justification or any reason to act the way I acted and say what I said, but I'm sure that has a lot that played into it at that moment in time. I was thinking like he needs all the opportunity he should be able to get, and this umpire took that away from him by this bad call that was obviously due to not paying attention. And so I was like, I'm advocating for my kid, but that was not the right way to do it, not at all. So I'm sorry, I'm seeing Doug's writing some stuff, so I want to get back and address it. Yeah, I appreciate it, Doug. Yeah, man, for sure, man. I appreciate all this. So yeah, I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, and I mean that's really what all boils down to. What Doug said is like, it was, I didn't want his season to be over with basically because of a bad call, and then also because of the way, he was leaving the team and going on other places. And I'm sitting there thinking, when it comes to kids, one bad call for a kid, a lot of times it can ruin their rest of the game, could ruin the rest of the day. And, they kind of get in their own heads and they get disappointed and things like that. So, and I'm thinking I need to try to advocate for him. But again, with all that being said, there is nobody to blame but myself. And, and so when you have that moment, when you're that parent and you're sitting there and you feel like your kid had some travesty delivered to them at their feet by a umpire or a coach or a referee or whatever, like just slow down and do WWJD. What would Jason do? And and I would say, don't act out in emotion. Think through what you're going to say, and then if you in that moment, if you think it's still a good decision to say whatever you're going to say, then I guess go with your gut. And if I would have done that myself, if I would have checked myself before I wrecked myself, I probably would have handled. I know I would have definitely handled things more differently, because I definitely did wreck myself. But again, it's not just wrecking myself. It's like I wrecked my poor son's image of me, probably, and perception, and everything's fine, of course, because he's a good kid, and he lets things, as like I said, roll off of him. But some kids, a lot of other kids are built different ways, and they're that kind of experience, watching their dad like lose their temper in a public forum and screaming at an umpire and using cuss words or whatever. I don't think I'll use the one, but still, that doesn't take away from it. Is traumatizing for a kid who doesn't see that kind of behavior and doesn't understand where did this come from. So yeah, definitely check, think about it before you say it, guys. Try to be better, do better. Take it from my experience that it is definitely not worth it to try to be like some kind of deliver some sort of quasi justice for yourself and for your kid, because at the end of the day, more than likely, you're going to be the one with egg on your face and embarrassment that you can carry around and be ashamed. And then also, not only does that follow you possibly for a while, if not for a long time, it could also follow your kid. And of course, if they surround themselves with good coaches and parents and other teammates, they're not gonna, it won't be any different. Your kid will be fine, which is what happened for my son Luca. They were all great. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything different. But if it was a different situation, that could be so hard for a kid to get through, and maybe they don't. Maybe that was just too tough, too much of a situation, embarrassment, experience, and they're just like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And I what can you blame them? Probably answer is no. So yeah, guys, hopefully this helps people. Hope other people can learn from it a little bit. I just wanted to share this experience because I think it's something that it's a human experience. It's an experience that a lot of moms and dads probably have gone through in the past. I know I'm not the only one. I know I won't be the only one. I know there's going to be plenty of other people who make poor choices like myself, but I'm trying to stop a few maybe people who may watch this and go like, is it really worth it? And the answer is a resounding no, it's not. Because think about your kid at the end. Do you think whatever you're getting ready to say or do is going to help glorify and solidify your relationship with your child? If the answer is no, then why would you do it? It did not help me build a better relationship with my kid by me acting like a horse's butt. It did not do that. The exact opposite happened. And not only that, it hurt your relationship with your kid, it hurts your relationship with everybody else. So is it worth all of that? If the answer is still yes, then I guess you got to do what you got to do. But I can tell you from my own personal experience, it was definitely not the right thing to do. And I still feel it a week and a half, whatever, week later. I still feel it, not from other people, but from myself. Like no one's made me feel guilty or bad or ashamed or embarrassed. Like it's all feelings and emotions I've had on myself because I'm stupid and I let my emotions override my whatever critical thinking ability and think that through before I said it. So anyways, hopefully that helps someone somewhere, even if it's one person hears this and says, you know what, that idiot in Indiana made a good point. I got to be careful. I need to think about my kid before myself. I'm not going to do or say those things because, it's not worth it. It's not worth the embarrassment for my kid to have to explain themselves for my sake, or explain themselves for their dad because their dad's dumb and said dumb stuff. Hopefully that helps someone along the way. So guys, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. I don't know if this will have 0 watches, but I just thought I'd throw it out there and hopefully somebody can glean something from it. So until next time, guys, I really appreciate the listen, and I will look forward to any comments below that can speak to this. I would be interested to hear your all's perspectives and thoughts too. So until next time, guys, thanks.